James has the pretty plate today, and mine isn't as pretty. My shake isn't as pretty either. So this is the falafel recipe again, and I was pointing out yesterday how high the sodium is in the eggs, and there's the protein, and there's the carrot pulp, and that's the sodium and protein and net carbs. And so you go down, and per ball there's actually a lot of sodium in each one. I don't know if I've done the math right, but that looks frightening. So I used to make my falafels, instead of the egg, I used yellow flesh potatoes, or Yukon Gold if you're growing them yourself. And there's the net carbs on that is 23 grams for one medium-sized potato. And you can see the sodium is a lot lower, so way, way lower. And it doesn't take much to do a whole batch of balls. It would one potato might do it for this many balls. It might even do more. So, and you can see here that this is for one egg, and the sodium is very high, and I'd need way more eggs. I needed a lot more eggs. I needed 18 egg whites for this recipe. So I want to point out that not all potatoes are the same. They don't look the same, and they don't have the same nutritional information. So one white potato, that's 35 net carbs for one of those, and they don't have the same sort of properties either. Oh, I wanted to review the Golf Series 2 against Those Who Kill, and James is going to talk about something. We don't know what yet.
I'm not sure. Well, that depends on how much time is left.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I guess I'll pull this over a little bit more, because I think I will actually be a part of the show today, but we'll see. I don't know. I'm pretty tired because I started taking statins last night.
No bad
And
headaches so
yeah,
far?
Nothing so far. So I don't know if
Maybe
it's...
that was a reaction to food then.
Yeah,
Before.
it might
Because
have
it was a bad reaction.
Yeah.
It's one
So-
of the worst she's ever had.
Yeah.
You know,
It was, well, no, I've had way worse migraines.
well, recently.
Yeah, recently. I haven't had them that bad for years. But anyway, yeah, so this time it's going fine. Today, so far,
Keep our fingers crossed.
besides the fact that I'm really tired. I
Yeah.
feel exhausted. I did manage to walk to the library and back, but I just feel like sleeping all day. And we'll see how I am tomorrow. Maybe this is just the first day, and maybe I'll get used to it or something. But honestly, I just feel like,
You run across other people. No,
well,
you've had
my
people in your
family members, yes.
Because it's,
So,
I think, a pretty rare condition.
well, high cholesterol is not rare. It's very,
No, but familial.
yeah, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, so
I've never heard
it's,
of it until you mentioned it. Heard of high cholesterol, but
yeah, but who hears of anything really unless they have?
unless a family member
Yeah,
has it.
or whatever. And so,
Possible.
yeah.
You hear
something-
about cancer or something like that, stuff
Yeah.
that's immediately life-threatening or whatever.
Anyway, so James has lots of beets on his plate. And why did I only have one of these balls? Well, that's a lot of sodium, and plus I'm having the red ruby kraut. You've been noticing I eat a lot of kraut, and especially this red ruby stuff. I just love it. So I don't know. Should I have more than this? Maybe not. So I'm gonna have to think up a new recipe, because I want to make recipes that both could be enjoyed by people who burn carbs and people who burn fat. So it shouldn't matter one way or the other. You should be able to enjoy it. So this one you can, but in moderation because of the sodium, right? And it's funny because I never really I never thought about egg whites before. It didn't even cross my mind that they could have anything in them besides protein. It just seemed like that's all they were, right? And like if you fry eggs, they don't taste very good unless you put some salt. And it's like, okay, so how much sodium then is your, it's, anyway. So,
Yeah, these are brown eggs, some of these that you've been making scrambled eggs out of and stuff like that.
that's just a package of eggs that I had in the recycling. I didn't even notice that I had it there. So,
okay.
yeah, it's
Brown eggs.
just, I just grabbed it out so that I could use it to show what the sodium in one egg.
Okay.
Which you don't eat them that way. Who has one egg? Nobody. Maybe little
kids.
children. Yeah.
I mean,
But-
we used to have little egg cups and stuff like that. Have
I
a
mean,
boiled
while
egg,
I've been eating eggs, I've been eating 6 egg whites at a time. Frying them.
Okay.
That's a lot of
So that's
sodium.
salt.
Then, all of a sudden, right? I didn't know. Didn't occur to me.
They've got a high protein. It says very high in protein.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's a warning or a boast.
So, the Gulf Series 2, I only watched the first disc of this so far. And I fell asleep.
Kid
eventually.
actor,
Yeah, I guess so.
not so bad.
Didn't notice.
Can't
So-
be that
Anyway, it's a mystery sort of thing. And yeah, crime drama. Yeah. So, more, yeah, police drama show than mystery. So you could compare the two and go, this one is more enjoyable for a number of reasons. One, I don't like having to read subtitles because that means I actually have to be present in order to watch the show. I like to multitask. I like to be able to leave the room and hear, oh, that's what's happening still. Whatever. It really ties me down when I have to read subtitles. So if you're Danish, if you know Danish, well, that doesn't matter for you because it's what it's in. But if you don't, then you're going to have to read subtitles. So this is from New Zealand. Beautiful scenery. I love watching New Zealand. I would love to live in New Zealand. But you know what? I love living in Canada. It's beautiful here too. So, and plus I think the culture would be similar there to here. And I like that.
It's a British background.
I like our culture.
It's one of the very few cultures, along with Canada and Great Britain and the United States, that has a long and fairly stable tradition to democracy. Holland too. All the rest pretty well useless.
All right. So anyway, some of it was too gruesome for me, and I don't think that. I was trying to think of who's the target audience here, because there's the lead investigator with both of these. They're females with short hair, and maybe seem a little bit tougher or whatever.
An average woman.
Yeah. So would that appeal to the average woman? I don't know. And I don't think that it would appeal to the average man. So, kind of limiting the audience there. This one I liked more. This one was too rough, and this one held her emotions better and was more believable in the role. Because I think somebody that was that didn't have the control, I don't think they would last long in police force. But maybe I'm wrong.
They do last. Like the one guy that a police officer said, "Oh, that's Mike." So this was where blood had been left on a place where I worked on the side of a door. And I wondered how the blood got there because, and
I heard this story.
well, I'm mentioning it for people. Okay.
Okay, so anyway, this was from 2021. This was from 2010. So there could be a difference just with time that way. But in this one, they had the sense to keep the opening sequence short. People don't want a long opening sequence that they like to binge watch TV for one thing. So having to watch the same thing over and over and have it take too long each time they're binge watching a whole disc of this, it's not fun. So this one was too long, the opening sequence. But that could be just, maybe it took a while for, it's the way TV used to be. They'd have a longer opening sequence. And then smarter television show producers have realized, no, we got to shorten that. I mean, honestly, you could just put the title of the show, boom, and then get on with the show. We don't need more than that. So, yeah, I have nothing else to talk about. It's all James for the rest of the show. He's going to fill your ears with whatever he likes.
I wish it were wondrous stuff, but...
Oh, for Pete's sake. That's me, see? Way too tired. I have to go get another fork. Okay, go ahead.
We're going to talk about this book, Kubilai. I say Kubilai. Kubilai Khan. But, I'm going to say Kubilai Khan. Okay? Just so we're somewhat on the same page. Now, so this is Kubilai Khan, brief history of Kubilai Khan, Lord of the Sanu, Emperor of China. This is a series that was put out maybe 20 years ago. I don't know if they've continued it. Let's see what the date is. I bet you this is more like 2011, but we'll just see. Well, I remember. I got 210 here, so that's probably a misprint for 2010. 2010. Off by 1 year. I must have been really dozy when I put 210. I put the titles. They will have or the date of publication.
Can I interrupt you for a minute?
Sure.
Because I realize why I brought out the potatoes. Not just to say that I used to use the potatoes instead to make the falafels and the beet balls and all this, burgers, whatever. Because it works really well as a binder. So you bake them and then you stick them in the food processor, and then eventually the food processor goes because it's like turns into a sticky mass. So, but anyway, it's because it's important what kind of potato you use. The yellow flesh potatoes work like a dream. They're just wonderfully sticky to make the falafel. Whereas the white ones, the red, the russets, the whatever, they don't work as well. So, I mean, different potatoes, they have different textures and stuff like that. They have different uses.
Different taste.
And different tastes. Yellow flesh, I find them better all around. But definitely if you're going to make falafels and use the potatoes as a binder, get the yellow flesh. They work way better. So that's all I wanted to say. That's why I brought that. I realized we were given the white ones. I'm very thankful for them. But I don't think I'll be eating any. James loves potatoes baked, so I think he'll be eating them.
Yeah, well, the skin's out.
Mm-hmm.
So this was put out by a guy called Jonathan Clements. I think this is a British series. Great publishing. One thing that seems to occur in this book, and it is, as far as I'm concerned, a serious criticism, or invites serious criticism, is that there's a relativism of values. It seems like the ultimate value is relativism. And folks who get involved in that and really kind of like elevate it to the skies in terms of the ultimate value don't understand that it's not relativistic to consider relativism the supreme value, or just a value. When you're dealing with the Nazis, you can't be a relativist. When you're dealing with the commies, however much you might want to, you can't deal in relativism. Like when Reagan called Russia the evil empire, the criticism should have been it wasn't the only evil empire, it was an evil empire, just like the Chinese. People's Republic of China was an evil empire. So was the Nazi empire. Less evil, although still evil, the fascist empire under Mussolini. Much less evil, although still evil, the Phalangist empire really wasn't an empire, strictly speaking, although it involved or included the Basques in the northern part of Spain. The Basques weren't enthused about that, and they weren't enthused about that even after Spain got something like, if not independence, freedom. I think it was 1975. I was born, actually. But anyway, some empires are more evil than others. Some things that are called empires, like the American empire, aren't empires. Just because Zbigniew Brzezinski, or however you want to mispronounce his first and last name, was going around saying the United States should be responsible in their imperialism. It was actually telling Jimmy Carter, you'd better behave like an empire because you're dealing with empires. Just because he did that, he was a Pole. I think he might have even been born in Poland. And he was used to, his ancestors were used to thinking in terms of empires, because they were at one time, there were, I think it was 3 different times, Poland was divided entirely up between neighboring empires, Prussian Empire, the Austrian Empire, and the Russian Empire. So to think of American influence in the world as Donald Trump's talking about empire when he's talking about taking over Greenland by force if necessary, and not excluding using force against Canada to turn it into a part of its empire. Now that's imperialism, at least in word, and so on and so forth. I'd be highly advised not to go after Greenland. It's part of NATO, and NATO has a policy of all of the members of NATO are joining up if any members of NATO are attacked. And Denmark, which technically owns Greenland, is, although it has a certain degree of autonomy, maybe a great degree of autonomy, is a member of NATO as far as I know, and they'd have to attack the United States in order to defend a fellow state, Denmark. And that's the way it should be, and I hope they do it if the United States decides to invade and take over Greenland. I don't think they'd be able to take it over. The United States has a bad record when it comes to winning short-term wars. They won one of the most incredible victories in the long Third World War, which went from, technically it went from 1917 down to 1991, but it started before 1945. The Russians were already behaving like very untrustworthy allies before the end of World War II. I mean, for example, they were stealing atomic secrets, all of them that mattered, well before even they were actually doing atomic espionage, even before I think the first chain reaction was ever developed. When was that? 42, 43. the University of Chicago, under the University of Chicago. This guy's going along saying, the thing to understand here's, I think this is Kublai Khan. It's kind of cute. It might have actually happened. Do you see what he's got riding on the horse with him? Pet leopard. The pet leopard is probably used for hunting and stuff like that. So
I like that it's smiling.
it kind of is smiling, but it's probably looking forward to the chase. These emperors and stuff like that, and this goes back a long ways. It's not recent phenomenon. The Mongols got going. Kublai Khan was a Mongol. They got going around 1200 AD. They're quite a late phenomenon. And frankly, I think they were a very bad reaction to Muslim successes. So, what Genghis Khan, the guy who started off the Mongol depredations, and for a while there, they'd had the biggest empire in the world. And the only thing that surpassed, as far as I know, is the British Empire. The Communist Empire, including China, might have actually been better. When Mao took it over, I think Stalin, he behaved as though it was part of his empire. So, Mao didn't take too kindly to that, but he knuckled under. Anyway, for the short time that Stalin was still alive, died 53, I think, China became communist 1948, I believe. 49. So the 4 years or so. Anyway, he's going around saying, no, these guys were nomads. Of course, Kublai Khan kind of settled down, lived in luxury. They were a little bit like the Saudis. The Saudis will have interiors where there's kind of like it's set up like a tent. Have you ever seen it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating. Well, that's not new. The Mongols did that. They basically took over the Chinese empire, and there are other empires to the west. There was empire in the domain of Haidu. So. And it's called the Chagadai Empire. It's Mongol. There's the Golden Horde that extended well into present-day Russia. It looks as though on this map it encompassed pretty well all of the Ukraine, for example. So that's well into Eastern Europe. So that's Mongols. They had no business being there. Look at a map of where Mongolia is. It's north of China. It's not really northwest of China. They had no business going there. They had the Ilkhanate, which is some sort of Khanate, where ruled over by Khan, and that took over all of Persia and pretty well all of Iraq, some of Turkey and stuff like that, so on and so forth.
I'm sorry.
I don't need to apologize. You got to have fun when you have those smoothies. It's like, if you can't be a kid, at least part of your life, all the way through your life, then what use is life? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, these guys were nomads.
It's fun.
And, hunter-gatherers, they have their problems. They all of them are warriors. It doesn't matter where they come from. They're used to hunting. But the trouble with pastoral nomads is, at least the more recent ones, the original Indo-Europeans would have been, and they did all sorts of depredations. They extended all the way from Burma, the western part of Burma. Ultimately, that was under Muslim influence, all the way to the shores of western shores of Ireland, western shore, long way. Anyway, they would have been going around not so much on foot, but on foot, but with mules lugging stuff, horses, donkeys, or you could say you could think of Donald Trump as a mnemonic and say asses. They were transporting around things with asses. So think of Donald Trump. Okay. Anyway, so asinine. That's Donald Trump. That means like an ass, and that means like a donkey, just in case you think I'm cussing or something like that. Anyway, folks on horseback going around doing pastoral nomadism, where they're herding cattle, are the curse of mankind, or they were up until communism and Nazism. Nazism came to power as a reaction to communism. Check it out. Okay? And it was, if anything, more virulent than communism, but in the long run about the same level of brutality. But at any rate, the curse of mankind, starting about 500 BC with the Persian Empire. Persian Empire took over pretty well all of the known world. They burnt Athens, for example. The Persians came from present-day Iran in just a relatively small part.
You don't even know what it is.
And they took over Egypt, 525 BC with Cambyses.
Did you want butter with your corn?
It's a tri-continental empire. I could, yeah. Anyway.
I grabbed some from the pancake breakfast.
This guy's going, they had to do what they had to do. It was like both sides were equally bad, like the Chinese and the nomads, the Mongols stomping into China. Hold on a second.
You can come
the
up
Chinese
if you
wouldn't
want.
have been terribly interested in Mongolia.
No.
They still don't own Mongolia. How does that happen? But the empire set up by the Mongols still kind of exists. Now, understand it was kind of like nomads.
He did begging hands, did you see?
I know, yeah.
So sweet.
I had stomped in, they owned the northern part of China. They were called the Jurchens or something like that, Jurchens. But they were really Manchurians. The Manchurians ended up taking over China, and they were the last dynasty up until the Commi dynasty, which was set up, we were saying 49. But,
he's so handsome.
They were I think they took over in China 1711 AD. It's amazing that something that recent could have been taken, so recently, a big empire could have been taken over by. Well, there is some question about how nomadic they were, but they were, Chinese considered them barbarians. They came from the north, they were uncivilized, they just were warlike, Just because you're living on the edge and you run into drought doesn't give you the right to stomp in on your neighbors, and that's been the traditional history of nomads until they unite together and decide to just take over things. The big trouble with them is they treat people the way they treat animals. They treat them like cattle. I think we'll find out that the history of slavery and serfdom and exploitation of peasants has largely been fueled by nomads moving into, for example, in Iraq, northern part of Iraq, the Assyrians, moving in that case with the Assyrian rulers, ruling caste, at least in the Neo-Assyrian Empire, it looks as though they came from the northern part of Arabia. They moved into, total barbarians, and they moved in and they set up a ruling caste and stuff like that. They were the bad guys when it came to taking over China. They were the bad guys even before then, because they'd keep on encroaching. When there was bad weather, they'd come in and encroach on agricultural land. People starve when they do that. They're taking over for pasture, unbelievably, for pasture, agricultural land